I want everyone that listens to this podcast to know how capable you are and how much you deserve in your life, and that you are so important to so many people. You're important to me. You're important to your family. You're important to that random person that needed to see you smile at them when you're walking down the street. I mean, we don't realize the depth of how much we matter in this world until we tangibly see it.
Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast of military and veterans who refuse to be silenced. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, provide value and solutions, and to change the culture when it comes to mental health within the DoD organizations.
Okay, so right off the bat, a few things. First of all, Spotify for Podcasters Wrapped 2023 just came out, and I was so humbled by the love that Your Story Doesn't End Here received in 2023. I'm just going to go through a couple of things here. I screenshotted it on my phone because I was like, holy crap, I didn't expect so much. First things first, Kyrie J. Soraya, Saving Veteran Lives, One Stream at a Time, was the top episode for the year. Shout out to Kyrie. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for providing value continually to my life and so many other people's lives. That episode was streamed 420% more than my average episode. 87% of the listeners discovered this podcast in 2023. Kyrie J. Soraya, Saving Veteran Lives, One Stream at a Time. 10% of the new listeners started with that episode because the podcast saw some nice growth, is what it said. 63% new followers. I'm just reading what it says on my phone. So if it sounds a little all over the place, that's because it is. 63% new followers, top 10 podcasts for 57 fans, top 5 podcasts for 41 fans, number 1 podcast for 15 fans. Top fans listened to this podcast 3.7 times more than other listeners. 2K minutes created of podcast episodes throughout the year. And then the US was the top country. Why am I taking the time to tell you guys this? Because by you supporting and listening to this podcast, you are actively supporting not only other people's mental health, because so many people get value from this podcast and listening to it and sharing it and liking it and subscribing to it. That increases exposure, but you're also actively part of that positive change. And when we talk about the mission of changing the culture when it comes to mental health within the DoD organizations, that is it right there, is people coming together, supporting, sharing this, helping other people feel less alone. You have been such an integral part of that this year, and I'm so grateful for that. I was looking the other day, I switched from Libsyn to Spotify. I started at Anchor, switched to Libsyn for a bit, and then went back to Spotify. And so I actually didn't have Spotify this entire year, just a portion of it. I don't remember when I switched back to that platform, but I was looking at my stats from when I previously had Anchor / Spotify, and looking at the things that used to really excite me, like having 93 people listen to an episode in a day. And I have quite literally doubled my stats in a year from where they used to be. And so just reminding myself personally of where I was and what used to excite me and where I am now and how much growth just in 2 years this podcast has experienced. And that's incredible. And thank you so much for that. Speaking of 2 years, November 9th was the 2-year anniversary of this podcast. I forget the exact day every single year, so I had to go on listennotes.com and remind myself of when we aired Your Story Doesn't End Here. And it has been officially surpassed 2 years. And putting out an episode every single week for 2 years is not the easiest feat in the world, but we got it done and we continue to get it done. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to put out value every single week. And again, so humbled. So thank you. As we are in the holiday season right now, I know I've touched a few times on holidays and how hard they can be. And, you know, as we hit the Christmas season and the New Year's season, just remember, just quick reminder, and this first reminder is for anyone who is not in the military, but this has been such a key talking point in a lot of the veteran groups that I'm part of right now, who are leaders in the veteran community, is to reach out to someone that you haven't talked to in a while. And I'm a little guilty of not doing this myself. I've been trying to be better at it as I remind myself that people really need and crave that human connection, but especially people that are serving in the military, even if they're not deployed. I know that it seems like people that are at regular US based military bases that they're fine and dandy and enjoying life, but I promise you that a large percentage of the people that you know that are serving the military could use your phone call or text message or Facebook message or Instagram message just to reach out and say, "Hey, how are you doing? I was just thinking of you today. Is there anything you need? Can I support you in any way?" Or just saying hi. You don't even have to make it complicated, but just do me a favor and reach out to someone this week who is active duty, a reservist, a veteran, and just let them know you're thinking of them and they are on your mind. And you don't have to call them because sometimes calls like me give people anxiety. Some people love phone calls. Do what works for you, but push yourself to reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in a while because it could quite literally save their life. On the active duty side, if you are deployed or if you are away from home, if you haven't seen family, friends, or done anything for the holidays in a while, I see you and I hear you, and I know what it's like. I spent 2018. I spent Christmas, New Year's, my birthday in Bahrain. And while it was a beautiful setup that they did there, they had a tree. They tried to make it as homey as possible. It just wasn't the same. And throughout the time that I served, we never really did anything for the holidays because it just isn't the same. And I know not everyone's like that. A lot of people have a really great support system. But if you don't, please reach out to someone. Find your tribe of people. And I know that's easier said than done. But what I've discovered on the other side of things as a veteran is what I mean by that is that there are so many tribes of people out there. I just didn't really quite know where to look. So what I would say is like even just networking groups, Facebook groups, not the toxic ones. We got the E5 and below parking Facebook group that's like borderline toxic. Like I'm legitimately afraid to go post in there because I'm like, are they going to roast me? Or are they going to take me seriously? But no, in all fun, a lot of those groups really do create this like reminder of what it's like to be in the military from like a fun lighthearted standpoint. But then if you're a veteran or you've served in the military or are serving, you know that how dark the humor can get at times too. So fine line there with Facebook groups, but point being that there are tribes out there. There's even nonprofit groups. Nine Line has their Route Step program. If you're in Whidbey Island or in Washington, that gets you out for hikes. Growing Veterans, if you're a gardener on Whidbey Island, and then also at Linden, I think is where their other location is. They also have a gardening program for veterans, which I thought was really cool. But all across the nation, you'll find different nonprofits that are really focusing on giving veterans the opportunity to find their tribe and network. And a lot of those nonprofits also are for active duty. So don't think that you're excluded because you are active duty. And if you ever want to just explore different nonprofit options, feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you with a nonprofit that might be in your niche or maybe something you want to try or explore. I know quite a few people who are in these areas and just want to help. And they're actually struggling finding the people to help in some of these nonprofits. Not all of them, but some of them do. And if you need the help, the resources are definitely out there for you. So you can always reach out to me on Instagram. You can reach out to me on the Facebook page, on the website, ysdeh.com. There's also a contact form on there too. So multiple avenues. Please, please, please reach out. Do not spend the holidays alone and wallowing in misery because you don't deserve that. You deserve to at least feel safe and comfortable. It might not be a happy time of year, but please don't spend it miserable because you don't deserve that. You deserve to always feel safe and comfortable and at least at a neutral, stable place in your life. So that being said, I want to get into the topic of the episode today, which is actually based off of a conversation that I had with someone a few days ago. And I found myself as I've gotten into this world of reintegration and focusing on the transition and the proactivity of mental health, I found myself now, whenever I talk to someone who says I'm active duty military, I find myself saying, okay, well, talk to me. When are you, or how many years are you planning on doing? Do you have a plan for when you get out? Which I know is such a cliche conversation, because when you're active, people are constantly asking you, like, what's your plan? What's your plan? What's your plan? We talk about around, we talk about planning, but no one really like gets into these like deep conversations about planning. It's just kind of like, oh, hey, Airman Timmy, what's your plan? Oh, I'm going to get out and I'm going to do my 4 years in college. And they're like, sounds like a great plan. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had midterm conversations or had eval conversations where they're like, hey, what's your plan? My plan was I'm going to get out and I'm going to go to nursing school. And then from there, I'm going to have a great degree. My degree is paid for because of the GI Bill. I'm going to get a great job. You know what happened to my plan? It went right out the window, right? Literally, like when I was getting out of the military. And I didn't have the setup, the foundation to be able to pivot easily into the next plan. I really didn't know what I was going to do. And so these conversations are extremely important to me. And I do get deeper in these conversations than the surface level, what's your plan? And so I had a conversation with an individual the other day who is active duty military. And obviously I'm not going to say the individual's name, but the content of the conversation was incredibly important to me, because I think that a lot of people can relate to it. And so I wanted to kind of get into a few points of that conversation and hopefully provide some value to you guys today. So the first part of the conversation, I asked him, what is it that you're planning on doing when you get out of the military? Or, well, I guess we started with like, how much longer are you doing? And for him, he was like, oh, well, I got like 10 years left. I'm going to do 10 years. I said, okay, well, 10 years is a long time. Do you enjoy what you do? And for him, it was that he enjoyed his job, but he didn't enjoy the Navy as an organization, which I think a lot of people can relate to. And so, now it's kind of getting to the point of, okay, well, can I translate this job somewhere else? Which, a lot of people can be contractors and work the same job, which that topic got brought up. But then we kind of expanded the mindset a little deeper, and we went into the topic of, okay, well, if time and money were not an issue, and if you're listening to this episode and you have not had this conversation with yourself, I want you to have this conversation with yourself. If time and money were not an issue, what would you do with your life? And so for him at first, it was, like a kind of like joking answer. And I don't quite remember exactly what he said, but, I repeated the question. I'm like, no. Time and money are not an issue. You can do anything you want to do in the world. What are you doing? And so he was able to share with me what he would do. And so then my next question was, okay, why aren't you doing that? Or why aren't you working towards that? Because obviously we're active duty. We can't just drop, go AWOL and say, hey, I'm going to go travel the world. Bye, guys. It's what I want to do. But if we know that something is our dream, and we know that maybe that's something we can make money off of and still have a really good time, why not start building towards that? And that was what I really focused this conversation around was, okay, if you want to open a retail chain store when you get out, if you want to own multifamily apartment buildings, if you want to travel the world, if you want to raise goldfish, right? It's like something off the wall, something where like you would tell someone active duty and they would be like, yeah, you're crazy. You're not doing that and making any money. Why not? Because in my mind, you can make money off of anything, but you have to make sure that your goals, your vision, your values, that they all align with each other. And the beautiful thing about being active duty is it gives you the opportunity to have that stability while you build your dream life. And that is one thing that I wish I would have done while I was still active duty, is instead of focusing on the here and now while I was active duty and building all these quals, which is important, don't get me wrong, like please do good at your job, do well at your job, advance the best you can while you are there. But understand that there are 24 hours in a day. And sometimes I was sitting on watch for 12 hours watching YouTube videos. You know what I could have been doing with those 12 hours? Not watching YouTube videos. I could have been learning a skill that would be making me money now. In, obviously towards the end of my active duty tenure, I started to focus more on personal development, but a lot of people really just don't spend that time building for what is next. And they don't even think about what is next. And then that is where we create this detriment at the end of the active duty time period, where some people, yes, they'll get a job, but their mindset doesn't quite shift. And when the mind is not aligned with the body, then it can be very hard mentally to deal with. And I see it a lot with people that have gotten out of the military. The reverse boot camp that Maurice talked about in the episode that him and I did together a few weeks back. Reboot program does a phenomenal job of shifting the mindset. And I highly recommend that for anyone transitioning out of the military. But there's something simple that you can do today is just have that conversation with yourself of, okay, I just joined the military. Let's say you're fresh out of boot camp. Let's say you've been in the military a year. Let's say you're somewhere in that very new time period, right? Okay, I'm in my first year. And this is where we start to think, okay, do I want to do 4 years? Do I want to do 20 years? Listen, it doesn't matter how many years you do in the military, you are going to get out at some point. Start building your skills now. And I get it. The military today is not the same as what it was when I was in. You have to get all these qualifications before you can even start to do your schooling. But I want you to think bigger, think outside of the box, right? Because education and what's so beautiful about living in this world today in this time period is that education is not just a college degree anymore. There is so much education out there online from mentors, coaches, programs. There's free education on YouTube. Pick a topic. You want to learn how to mountaineer? It's on YouTube somewhere. You want to learn how to make 20 different mixed drinks? It's on YouTube somewhere. You want to learn the basics of doing nails or cutting hair? It's on YouTube somewhere. Pick a topic and just expand your mind. I recently got one of my friends hooked onto the Diary of a CEO podcast. It's one of the platforms that I love to use to expand my mind and learn more about myself. If you are in my Story Shifters community, it's my military and veteran leadership community on Facebook. I posted one of the videos from Diary of a CEO because I like watching the YouTube version. Posted the video and there the other day, it was from a neuroscientist, and I love learning neuroscience from neuroscientists because I always learn more about myself, but just pick some way to grow. And this is, I think, what stood out to me the most about this conversation that I had with this individual is when I talked about growth and they said, what are you doing to grow? There just wasn't really anything happening. And that's okay. We don't know what we don't know. So I will never fault someone that isn't familiar with personal growth and development for being where they are at mentally, physically, spiritually. But when we pushed a little deeper into the conversation, I said, okay, well, here are these tools. You can use these tools. You can listen to podcasts, you can read books, do whatever works for you. But my one question for you is, what makes you uncomfortable? And one of the things that came up for this individual was sitting with themselves. And I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. There's times when it makes me uncomfortable. But what I challenge this individual to do, and what I'm going to challenge every single one of you listening to do, is pick something every single day. I want everyone that listens to this podcast to know how capable you are and how much you deserve in your life, and that you are so important to so many people. You're important to me. You're important to your family. You're important to that random person that needed to see you smile at them when you're walking down the street. I mean, we don't realize the depth of how much we matter in this world until we tangibly see it. And that's one of the reasons I started out this episode by talking about the Spotify Wrapped, because that for me is me seeing tangibly the impact that this podcast makes. And I don't see that every single day. So sometimes it can be very easy to feel like it's not enough, but sometimes we need to create that tangibility for ourselves, however that may be.
Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. With your support, we are able to increase awareness of the mental health issues affecting service members and veterans today, with the goal of creating positive change. If you got value from this episode, please take 30 seconds to subscribe and share this episode within your own network. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.